Hi, and welcome to the second installation of the Pelvic Empowerment Overactive Bladder series. I'm Tori, and I am a doctor of physical therapy who specializes in pelvic dysfunction, which means I treat things that can go wrong around the pelvis, and this includes bladder dysfunction. If you haven't, please do check out the previous video in this series, as these videos are much more effective if they are viewed in order, and the last video makes a lot more sense out of the topic that we are discussing today, which is the first step in bladder retraining, keeping a bladder diary. As always, timestamps and links to any studies or resources mentioned today can be found in the description below, and without further ado, let's get into it. So, in order to tailor bladder retraining strategies to you and your unique bladder, it's important to get to know your unique bladder habits so that you can compare your baseline to what's considered normal, identify any potential activity or dietary triggers, and decide how and where you should intervene. Let's begin by talking more about what's considered normal. A healthy bladder should be able to hold about 1 to 2 cups of urine before emptying. Said another way, a healthy bladder should fill to about 1 to 2 cups of volume before it sends that level 3 urge to your brain that we discussed in the previous video. Voiding 6 to 8 times during your waking hours, which usually translates to once every 2 to 3 hours, is considered within normal limits. Now, bladder capacity does decrease as we age, which means voiding frequency does increase as we get older. However, that should still translate to once every 2 hours or so. Finally, as far as nighttime voids go, anywhere from 0 to 2 times per night is considered normal, depending on your source. Now, I do think that these norms are helpful, and I do use them as guidelines to inform the interventions that I'm using in the clinic. However, I do not think that bladder retraining should be laser focused on replicating these norms. Instead, I think that bladder retraining should be focused on you feeling as though you have gained control over your bladder instead of you feeling as though your bladder is constantly controlling you. Every human body is different, which means every bladder is different. And there are a lot of other variables that we'll discuss later on in this series that can impact bladder health and cause someone without any bladder issues to stray from these norms. So again, I am not as concerned about whether or not you're urinating once every 2 to 3 hours, so much as I want you to feel in control of and no longer distressed about your bladder. With that in mind, how do you keep a bladder diary to better understand your habits? There are a number of free diaries available on the internet, and it can be tricky to know what variables are worth documenting and which ones aren't. So I went ahead and created my own bladder diary for you in a Google Doc so that you can print out however many copies you need, and a link to access that Google Doc can be found in the description below. Finally, before we talk more about which variables I think are important to document and why, it is important that you enter into this exercise without harsh judgment. You are observing yourself and better getting to know your bladder habits through a lens of curiosity so that you can help yourself heal. Do try to be kind to yourself as you observe your habits during this exercise. And with that being said, let's go ahead and start reviewing the diary. The first thing you'll see is the date. I think it's helpful to keep a diary for at least 3 days. We want as full of a picture of your bladder habits as possible. It doesn't have to be 3 days in a row. In fact, it can be helpful to keep a diary for 1 to 2 work days and compare those results to 1 to 2 weekend days to better identify triggers and other things that may be contributing to the issue. I want to know how often you're urinating and how much volume volume you're expelling when you do urinate. I think defining frequency is helpful later when we're determining which strategies are the most helpful for you. And I think getting clear about how much volume you're actually expelling when you pee can be incredibly valuable. You now know that you shouldn't have a strong urge to urinate unless your bladder has 1 to 2 cups of urine in it. So if you empty your bladder and that volume is less than 1 to 2 cups, you have hard objective evidence that you didn't actually need to empty, regardless of the intensity of your urge. That information is helpful later when it comes to retraining urges. You can see I gave the option to measure urine output in seconds, milliliters, or ounces. That's because there are a number of ways to measure your urine output. If you want to be precise, you can order what's called a urine hat, which is a contraption that rests on your toilet seat that catches and measures your urine for you. You can also pee into some sort of measuring device, or you can time your pee. We have good evidence to suggest that a full second, an actual timed full second of normal, healthy urine flow is equal to about 1 ounce of urine. So in theory, if you have a healthy stream and pee for 10 seconds, you expelled about 10 ounces of urine. Back to the diary. I also think it's important to note what level of urge you're acting on when you urinate. I like the 0 through 3 rating system, where 0 is no urge at all, you peed just in case, and 3 is a very strong urge. If you're peeing just in case or at a lower level urge, that's okay for now, but it would be helpful to note why you're peeing. You'll see in the far right column, we have a notes section. If you put a 0 or a 1, write down why you acted on that small urge or with no urge at all. Maybe you were about to go for a drive or about to enter a meeting. Whatever it is, write it down so we can examine it later. Also, if you had a super strong level 3 urge come out of seemingly nowhere, write down what you were doing then as well. Maybe put a star next to the surprise level 3 urge so you know to pay attention to it later. There is such a thing as an activity trigger, which is sometimes called key in the door urgency, where the brain has learned to associate certain activities with a strong urge to urinate, like coming home from work and putting your key in the door to enter your house. We'll want to be able to identify those potential triggers later. Next thing is leakage. Urge incontinence, or involuntarily leaking urine secondary to a very strong urge, can develop alongside urgency frequency. If you're leaking, it can be helpful to identify when and what was going on when you leaked. If you leaked and you noticed it's associated with some sort of activity trigger, like the key in the door example we just discussed, write it down in the notes section. All right, and the final 3 columns. We've got what you're drinking, how much you're drinking, what you're eating, and what type of medications you're taking. We're interested in what you're drinking and how much you're drinking so that we can measure fluid volume in and compare it to volume out. We've got an area underneath the chart to put those measurements, and we want to identify potential bladder irritants, know how hydrated you are, and how you're drinking your fluids. Are you chugging or spacing them out throughout the day? Again, no judgment. Just observe yourself and write it down. Food can also contain bladder irritants, so we want to know if you're sensitive to anything that you're eating, and medications can cause bladder irritation. So we want to know if you're reacting to a medication that you're taking so that, if you are, we can bring that information to your doctor and talk about maybe spreading out your dosage throughout the day, changing when you take the med, or even switching to a different med. Some final notes before we end this video. 1, you will pee when you poop. That's normal, and you don't have to measure that urine output too precisely. Just note that you had a bowel movement and that you also peed. And finally, if you are someone who pees after sexual activity in order to prevent urinary tract infections, that is not a habit that you need to change. Just write down when you peed, how much you peed, and why you peed. All right, please do keep a bladder diary for 3 days like we discussed earlier earlier in this video. Bonus points if you can include a work day and a weekend day so that we can get a fuller picture of your bladder habits. And join me in the next video in this series where we'll talk more about how to interpret your results and discuss which bladder retraining strategies will be the best for you. On that note, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down and let me know what I can do to improve in the future. Feel free to comment absolutely anything down below. Feedback, content suggestions, questions, really anything. I do try really hard to read and respond to all of my comments. Don't forget to check me out on Instagram. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, please do consider subscribing to the channel. I make videos about pelvic things, like today's video, and I also make videos about life things. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.